In this particular case, how were the computers in fact collected, and how was the IBM collected, and how should it have been collected?
It is my understanding that the computer was left on. I kind of cringed when I heard that because typically if there is RAM data on there, because the computer is left running, okay, before they collect that, they should use a forensic tool to grab that RAM data and then shut the computer down. But there's a full process even before we get to that point. Documenting exactly, taking digital photographs of the scene, taking digital photographs of the computer itself, logging and documenting serial number, model number, type of computer that it is. You're not going to get access to that hard drive right there and then. You may take that back to the lab and go ahead and do the same thing, follow processes, log it in, document the hard drive, take pictures of the hard drive. This computer in the IBM ThinkPad of Brad's was left on, okay? That's an issue because now, is my understanding after looking at that was still connected to a VPN and it was connected to a wireless network as well. So anybody can get access to that computer. Now you have things that will be changing, files that will change. There could be updates. There could be, I know Brad was connected to the Cisco network. There could be updates to the Cisco network. I saw file changes. I mean, I saw numerous file changes. Just based on the reports that I read, there were several hundred files that were changed. To me, again, that's spoliation as a forensic examiner. I saw access through the VPN, okay, where Cisco was communicating with that laptop. Okay, and that in itself is an issue because the files were getting changed when they shouldn't have. That laptop should have been off.
At this point, I'd like to talk about computer-based evidence, since it is the only way that the Cary Police Department can, the state can even argue a link between Mr. Cooper and Mrs. Cooper's death. The computer was outside of Brad Cooper's custody at 5:20 in the afternoon on July 15th. And after that time, it remained on for 27 hours. It remained on a web-protected wireless network. Many of the folks who have testified in this case you've heard have jobs that deal with computers. There were 692 files that were modified from that 5:20 period until the computer was shut off 27 hours later. And despite allegations of tampering, the FBI did absolutely nothing to eliminate the possibility of tampering. They claim to have evaluated the 692 files that were altered, but were unable to explain on cross-examination how certain files were eliminated. Among the files that are actually shown as altered in the master file table are all of the email folders. They're all of the temporary internet history folders. They're all of the temporary internet index files. The files that are altered are not files that would alter through automated processes. These are files that were manually altered. And you've heard testimony as to just how easy that is. You've also heard that if there was a cookie associated with that search, that they would have been able to take the information from this cookie, this receipt that comes with the internet search, and they would be able to ask of Google who did it, when was it done, what time, what computer it came from, not who did it, what computer actually produced the search. And all of the details of the activity could be provided. In fact, you also heard from Officer Chappell that that could be done even with other Google cookies, even though they did not have a Google cookie at all on the computer that matched up with the search. The reason there was no Google cookie that matched the search is that a Google cookie cannot be forged. There is no way to do it that the if sent back to the FBI, or sent back to Google with a subpoena, it will not come back to the actual person that did the search. Not being spoofable, that cookie does not exist anywhere in the temporary internet files at all. Is there a value to looking toward cookies?
Absolutely.
Could you explain what that is and why that is?
Cookies are like a tracking device. Anytime you've been on the internet, a cookie will attach to your browser. Okay, that's how we love that as a forensic examiner, because we can go in and see where you've been. If there's no cookies, I can't technically see what time you were there. I may find a trace that you've been to a website, but if there's no cookies, I can't validate that. But the cookie is extremely important.
Was there any cookie present at all that corresponded to the search on July 11th in Google Maps?
I did not see that.
Did you see a deleted version of a cookie from?
I did. As I recall, there was also a deleted watermark stamp on a Google search, Google Map.
Okay, and what did a deleted watermark stamp mean?
Okay, that told me so, in fact, I think it even had an invalid timestamp associated with it, I believe. That means that that file isn't a good file. Because based on other cases I've done with timestamps, watermarks that are proprietary information, like Google's information is proprietary, when we see an altered watermark, that means that file's been tampered with.
Okay. There's no real way to forge a cookie to put it on somebody's computer, is there?
I could drop a cookie on someone's computer if I wanted to, using the right forensics or quote-unquote hacker tool.
But if somebody were to subpoena the records from Google to ask who did this search and when was it done, would the information that they got back trace to the person's machine you put it on, or would it trace back to you?
It would give you the information on that cookie for that user.
And when you say for that user, are you saying the
The
person?
browser. I'm sorry. The browser.
So
That's
person,
identifiable with that laptop.
the person that actually did the search,
Absolutely.
not the person whose machine it gets put on.
Someone who did the search.
Of the deleted cookies that you found, there were none from July 11th. Is that correct?
Which again led to suspicion.
Now, in your experience, does law enforcement rely upon cookies to seek out more information from internet providers?
Yes, what happens is because we write search warrants for law enforcement, and we put everything and anything that's applicable to that user account. We want all the information, and we try not to leave anything out. Well, you want to get the Google cookie because that gives us browser information. So everything's there. I did look at what was written, and I didn't see anything by law enforcement, excuse me, that was written in the search warrant, and there was no mention of cookie. It's been my experience that Google will only give you what you ask for.
In addition to the not looking for a cookie, there were indications that time had been changed on the machine after the machine was out of Mr. Cooper's custody, that the time registry showed that it had been altered. The password for Mr. Cooper's user account had been changed and was not present in the SAM registry and not included in the report for that computer at all. You heard Officer Chappell testify that, well, that's not important. It's really irrelevant as to whether or not we put that in a report, and so I do not put it in reports, while at the same time, he had put exactly that information in the report on Nancy Cooper's computer. And finally, the administrator password had itself been altered on that account. And what Officer Chappell wrote in his initial report was that a change to the administrator password or invalid login attempts could be signs of tampering, but that was not found on the machine. But it was found on the machine. And when confronted with that, he was forced to admit that, in fact, that is what they were able to find. And that there were 3 successive attempts to log on to the administrator account at 3:10 in the afternoon on July 15th. And finally, the sheer logic of the Google Map search is something that bears some discussion. If you know where it is that you intend to drop a body, you don't search on a Google map to find a spot. If you don't know where it is you want to drop a body, you look around. You actually browse as you're going through the map. Instead, you can see that in this case, what happens is that there is a successive progression of maps that indicates a beeline directly to the Fielding Drive location, which each time that map refreshes, each block has to refresh a separate unit. So in 41 seconds, each full web page has to refresh. Each one of these pages was actually in temporary internet history, every file with the invalid timestamp. But to get all the way to that point, you receive no benefit from that type of a search. The only reason why somebody would go directly to that spot is to put those images on a system. It is not to find a place to put a body. It is not a search for a place to put a body. It is simply inconsistent with what anyone would logically do.